Hello and welcome everyone to episode 192 of Navigating Now. My name is Layla Mohadis. I'm a senior consultant here at Thoughtium and I'll be your host for today. Just as a reminder, we go live every week at 3 p.m. Central, and you can find all of our episodes at thoughttium.com/live. I am so excited to be joined by Ali today. You might recognize him from our Meet the Team episode a few weeks ago. When I first met Ali, I was immediately struck by his curiosity, his zest for life, and overall positive attitude. When Ali brought up the idea of doing an episode on the World Happiness Report, I thought it sounded like a really awesome opportunity to dig into some of the findings, discuss some key insights, and connect back to some of the work we do here at Thoughtium. So we'll be unpacking some trends across age groups, the impact of happiness on well-being and longevity, and how we might utilize mindfulness as a tool to counter some of the negative trends that have emerged. So a lot to dive into today. And with that, I'll welcome Ali back on.
Hello,
Hello.
hello. Hi.
How's it going? I'd love to hear one word for how you're coming in today.
Well, it's going to sound a little cliche, but I will say happy to be digging into the happiness report. Just got to leave
Great.
it
I love it. And so I know you brought this up as an idea for an episode, and just love to hear what are you most excited to talk about today?
Yeah, the happiness report is something I always got notifications of like the 2022 reports out, 2023 reports out. And then now that the 2024 report is out, ever since having kids, I've made it a real goal for myself to find moments of happiness and joy as much as possible. And I was like, you know what? This is going to be the year I read the 2024 happiness report. You see the implications it's having all over the world, kind of the factors of what goes into measuring happiness. And you're starting to see governments take, and really companies and everyone just taking steps towards like policies, priorities. How do you help people be more happy? Because it just has such awesome implications throughout society, throughout people's lives. So, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And we'll dig into kind of all of those downstream implications, but love that you're coming in happy today. So am I. And within some of the report, diving in now, some of the factors they examine relating to happiness include things like GDP per capita, healthy life expectancy, having someone to count on, freedom to make life choices, generosity, positive and negative emotions, and so on. And so I'd love to know, before we really dig into some of the data, what do you think contributes most to your own happiness?
So for me, I think, and you mentioned those positive and negative emotions. So the report defines those positive emotions as yesterday, did you feel a moment of laughter, enjoyment, and doing interesting things? And as I'm reading those, I'm thinking, oh, those are the things that drive my happiness. Am I laughing and having fun with friends and family? Am I enjoying the people I'm with, the activity I'm doing? And then in terms of hobbies, work, interests, am I doing something that I find interesting and kind of pushes my boundaries? So it's interesting to see that the things that I inherently thought drive my happiness line up with what those positive factors are for driving happiness.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that checks out. And yeah, thinking about just some of the work that we do, it is so nice to be somewhere that we're interested, we're engaged, because so much of our lives is spent at work, right? And so it's nice when that contributes to your happiness too.
Definitely.
Nice. So, diving into some of the trends of the report, we saw a lot of trends with regard to age group and life satisfaction. So, love to hear what were some of those trends that were maybe surprising to you, and why do you think those have emerged?
Yeah, so this is actually the first year, excuse me, that they have enough data to start looking at happiness, not just on an age group basis, but on a generational basis. So that was very interesting to see. And essentially, kind of the thing that stood out for me, there were two pieces. One is the global trend is you start off really happy in your youth, and then you get less happy as you get older. But in the US specifically, it's actually the complete opposite. You start off way more unhappy when you're younger, especially for millennials and Gen Z, and then you start to get happier as you get older. And a lot of it contributes to, really stems from those six factors you talked about earlier of what drives happiness. So it's interesting to see, why are we in this reversal? It talks about things like social isolation, loneliness, social support, social interaction. Those are the real drivers of happiness. So it's interesting to think, where is that lacking maybe in the US where we are? And then how is that being more supported and coming forward more outside in the rest of the world?
Yeah, super interesting. And yeah, kind of unfortunate to hear that that is the reverse in the US. And so I'm curious, how have you maybe seen some of those trends play out, I guess, in your own life, just thinking about your own happiness as you've aged, maybe friends or family that you know.
Yeah, and not to sound morose, but younger, you always have these like hopes and dreams. You get older, you realize you've got bills to pay and all these responsibilities. But a big part of it, I think, not to sound too cliche, is kind of post-COVID, right? Where your view of the world changes, maybe the way people interact with each other changes. You see this massive move towards people working remotely, so that drives that sense of maybe like you're alone, you're home, you're not getting out as much, you're not engaging in activities, maybe your social circle isn't as big or as strong as it used to be. So working remotely, I definitely feel those things and notice those things, but I make a very conscious effort to get out and do the things that make me happy. So for example, I mentioned this in the Meet the Team episode, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's something that I enjoy. It's something that I laugh at because I'm still learning and not great at it. And it's something that is interesting and you get enjoyment out of. So ways to foster community, build community, have those social support. It's how do you find it to kind of counterbalance or counteract what you're seeing are the drivers of unhappiness in the happiness report.
Definitely. And I love those examples you gave of some of the really intentional ways that you kind of foster your happiness, right? Because I relate to that totally. I work remotely, a year and a half ago, I moved cities, right? And it's tough as you get older, I think, to build more community and to kind of get out of that mindset of loneliness. And so, yeah, some of the things I started doing, I started going to yoga studio. I do at some point really want to see you do jujitsu or have a jujitsu lesson from you at some point.
I
But
will find a tournament nearby next time I see you, and you can watch me get flattened.
yeah, look for some tournaments in Sacramento. But yeah, I think one thing that comes to mind here too that we haven't touched on yet, just regard to kind of millennials, Gen Zs, declining happiness, declining positive emotions. We haven't yet talked about technology. So I'd love to hear maybe what's your take on the way our generations interact with that technology.
Yeah, I think, something that we've all heard of is doom scrolling, right? You get caught up on social media. There's that classic, quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And when you're caught up in social media, you're either seeing the things that are going horribly around the world, all these catastrophes, disasters, natural or man-made, but at the same time, you're seeing these, brushed up images of what other people are experiencing in their lives. And you're thinking, oh, why aren't I on a surf vacation in Bali? Why aren't I taking a cooking class in Italy? Why am I sitting in front of a computer working when I could be, living out of a backpack or a sweet RV doing van life somewhere, right? So having that comparison piece of thinking, okay, I'm not doing something that someone else I see is doing. And a lot of that is driven by that social media, that technology where, yes, you may be able to find online communities, more easily than you could have before of people with similar interests, but it's very different connecting online, maybe via Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, whatever it is, rather than connecting in person and kind of pulling away from the happiness report. Have you ever heard of something called the blue zones?
No.
So the blue zones it's this thing that was studied a couple of years ago, and basically a researcher had identified that there are places around the world that he calls them blue zones. And the reason for that is these are places where they have the highest concentration of people who live to be older than 100 years old. And you looked at what are the common sort of drivers and factors of people living to that age. And it is strong community and social support, having those moments of laughter and joy, having opportunities for downtime and building community. And you look at, in the World Happiness Report, kind of the key thing that really caught my attention, and I think it was on the first or second page of it, it's saying that later in life, having higher levels of happiness and well-being earlier in your life lead to longevity and lead to reduced rates of dementia, which is kind of one of the leading causes of people sort of declining quality of life as they get older. And it's interesting to see like those positive emotions when they say laughter is the best medicine. It's now sort of being scientifically proven in the data that those moments of joy, those positive interactions, having those happy moments leads to a longer life, a healthier life, and a better quality of life as well. So I tell my wife this, I'm always saying like, Aaliyah, how can we create a blue zone in our little home at Arlington, Massachusetts?
Love that. Yeah, a lot of the report did kind of take a look at how that well-being has emerged as one of the most powerful factors in increasing longevity, decreasing rates of dementia. And actually, we've been focusing a lot on well-being here at Thoughtium this year, with Nora kind of spearheading this well-being effort, which has been really awesome. We've been able to do a couple of well-being sessions as a whole with our team and kind of exploring what that means to us. We have like a well-being wheel where we take a look at all these different facets of our life and kind of talk about where we might want to improve. And so I'm curious, what does kind of well-being mean to you? And I guess, yeah, what are some of your most important well-being factors?
So I think well-being, it's really rooted in self-care. And sometimes people might think of it as selfishness. And I had someone reframe it to me in the past as, it's not selfish, it's being loyal to yourself, right? So it's how do you take care of yourself? That concept of how do you fill your cup? Because you can only give to others, build your community, support those people around you, as much as you're able to take care of yourself. So if I'm empty, my cup isn't full, I'm feeling drained, I can't be there for my wife, my kids, my friends, my family. So I start to think, how can I fill my cup? It's things like having that freedom to do interesting work, which I'm really loving what we do at Thoughtium, especially having kind of gotten out of the clasps of working in tech startups, doing jujitsu, spending time with friends and family, traveling, cooking, lately exercising. I won't say I enjoy it in the moment. It's kind of that type 2 fun where I enjoy it after the fact. But these are all the things that really cater to my well-being. And then on top of that, how can I be mindful while I'm doing these things so I get more joy and happiness out of it?
Totally. And I love that you brought up the mindfulness aspect too, because one of the things that I really appreciated about the way that kind of Nora has approached well-being with us is kind of giving that framework of the wheel allows me, like I'm a very visual learner. And so it allows me to see like visually, oh, where am I filling my cup? Where am I maybe not spending so much time and energy? Like, what do I want to improve upon? Where could I maybe pull back some time? And having that intentionality around like where I'm spending my time, because we only get 24 hours in the day. And I think I've been a lot more intentional since we started doing that about kind of where I'm prioritizing my time and my energy. So
Yeah.
awesome.
And thinking back to, we did our company retreat last week in the Great Smoky Mountains, right? And one of those days was dedicated to a session where we brought someone in who led us, I think it was like 6-7 hours, but it just flew by. And the whole thing was about, how are you mindful? How do you help mindfulness work for you? How do you use your thoughts in a way so that you feel like life is happening for you, not to you? And when you look at the things of, the positive emotions that drive happiness, it's laughter, enjoyment, doing interesting things. Those are things that you kind of, get more elevated when you're mindful about it and you're more thoughtful about it. And then the negative emotions, things like worry, sadness, anger, those are things are maybe where you're not so in the moment. You're worrying about something in the past, you're angry about something that might be coming up. So it's interesting to sort of see how so many different dots across our lives connect. And again, mindfulness, thoughtfulness, it all works together.
Totally. Yeah, I wanted to share kind of related to that, even a couple kind of tools for mindfulness that we got from the session. As part of it, we kind of all were sharing some ways that we can kind of bring ourselves into the present moment, which if you know me, you've worked with me, I'm always kind of everywhere but here. Sometimes it feels like I'm always thinking about the next thing or reflecting about the past. And so a couple things that kind of stood out to me were just asking or giving yourself the statement like, I'm here today, and that kind of grounds you in that present day. Or even someone else mentioned having nostalgia for the present, which I love that phrase, kind of just like anchoring yourself in that present moment. And yeah, the thing that scares me the most, I think, is when you're not present and you're not kind of enjoying those things in front of you and appreciating those moments of joy and laughter, then your life is just kind of just flying by, right? And without you even noticing it. So love that you've brought those elements to you and your household, and excited that your girls get to kind of grow up with that mindset too.
I do what I can.
Nice. Well, let's see. I have a few more questions for us, but as we're rounding out this discussion a little bit, if you had to leave our listeners maybe with one key happiness tip, what would that be? And if there's anything else you wanted to share that stood out to you.
Oh, I'm this close to writing a manifesto, so I'm going to try not to talk about it. But I would say the key happiness tip is just like be mindful, be joyful. Layla, I shared this with you a little earlier. I keep a countdown clock on the home screen of my phone where
Yeah.
it counts down to my life expectancy. So as an Arab man born in 1989 in the US, I'm expected to live 77 years. So I have a countdown until my 77th birthday. And whenever I have moments of worry, anger, sadness, is something working for me? Is it working against me? I just look at that and I think, is it worth the time? Can I be filling this time with happiness and joy instead? So I think remembering that time is your most valuable resource, it's non-renewable, and you never know how much of it you have left. Kind of leverage that to think, how can you keep filling that cup and have those moments of joy and happiness for yourself and for the people around you?
Totally. I love somewhat more morbid, but definitely useful.
It works in a positive direction.
Okay, good. I don't know if I'm gonna put a countdown clock on my phone, but I appreciate the sentiment. And that reminds me of another tool. It's like the will it matter in 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years, kind of a gut check for when you start feeling that worry or anxiety. Well, as we wrap up, I have a few kind of fun rapid fire questions that we like to usually end with. So first one, kind of going with the theme of this episode, what's a recent moment of joy that you've had?
I would say actually our offsite last week. It was the first time I was with our entire team of 18 people in one place at the same time. And you go into these offsites and these retreats thinking like, oh, it's going to be fully work related, but it was just a great opportunity to connect with each other as people, especially through that mindfulness session, and just the joy of realizing like, yes, we all are employees and work together, but first and foremost, we're people, and I like to think we're great people. So that was a real moment of joy to kind of see it and feel it.
Me too. That was so much fun. Yeah, just getting to spend quality time with everybody, eating a lot of cheesecake, hiking in the mountains. I think I had enough dessert last week to last me for the rest of the month. But next rapid fire question. What is one of your favorite concerts that you've ever been to?
So the first job I worked out of college, I worked for an organization that worked with musicians and stuff. And my first weekend on the job, I had a backstage pass to Outside Lands, like the VIP backstage pass to Outside Lands. So my favorite concert was Stevie Wonder, but I wasn't even in the VIP section. I was sitting on the side of the stage while he was performing, and then the same thing for the next night when Red Hot Chili Peppers performed. So that was just like nothing has matched up ever since, and that was 12 years ago. So
That
again, maybe it's just a downward trend like the happiness report. Who knows?
That's so legendary. I am going to Outside Lands actually this year in a few weeks, but I just have GA. But I'll be thinking of you while I'm sardine in the crowd. That's awesome though. All right, last question. What is your favorite way to spend a Saturday morning?
So in Arabic, we have this word called subhiyya, and it's essentially what it means is it's the time of morning where you're the only person awake in the house and everyone's asleep and you have like everything to yourself. So I try to take advantage of that as much as possible. So I'll have my little espresso from my espresso machine and my little orange cup. I'll start to read that week's edition of The Economist because I like to know what's happening. And then I will start to make breakfast for my kids. So getting the eggs together, getting all of that, and just because every morning we have a dance party, but there's something about the Saturday morning dance party with the girls that's even more fun because I know I don't have to log on to a computer soon. The day is kind of just open-ended, so it's a lot of fun.
Oh, I love that. I also love being the first one awake and just like doing little tasks around the house. Like I love leaving a couple dishes for myself the night before so I can like do them in the morning and feel first thing in the morning. I don't know if other people do that, but that's my little like accomplishment of the morning.
For me, that seems almost more morbid than the countdown clock to life expectancy, but to each their own.
Yeah, hey, whoever works. Well, thank you so much, Ollie. This was such a fun conversation. Thanks for our listeners for tuning in. Again, we go live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. And this was Navigating Now. I'm Layla Mohadis signing off.
Thanks.